Pride of understanding that we were going to be the start of something that was going to be bigger for the entire country.
Community pride pretty much sums it up. It took a village for Indianapolis to pull off the improbable, hosting the entirety of March Madness last year. Now, the city and its cadre of event organizers, medical experts, volunteers had already been planning to host the NCAA Men's Final Four in 2021, but not the entire tournament. The pandemic changed the game plan, and college basketball looked to the city that crowns champions, and Indianapolis responded in a big way.
For the last 40 years, Indianapolis has put athletes at the forefront.
It's part of our DNA, it's part of our ethos. Sports has put Indianapolis on the map and made us known, and that's in large part tied to the Indiana Sports Corp and the work they've done through decades.
They were the first in the country to think strategically about what does sports bring to us? What can we use sports for to promote our community? Nobody else does that.
The sports corporation's handprint is everywhere, and that's one of the things that I think is a little bit invisible in the community. Nobody really knows how all this gets done.
And these events don't happen without hours of pre-planning and what-ifs.
A lot of people just take for granted what goes into large events. Fortunately, we here in Indianapolis and throughout the state of Indiana, folks know how to pull off large events.
I hope when we talk about the 2021 March Madness that people realize just how complex it was.
There were so many elements that went into housing a 68-team tournament in a time of a pandemic.
I can't think of anything short of the Olympics that would be more complex than what we just did.
We had to rethink the event from the start.
We had transportation, we had operations, we had air travel, we had COVID testing.
I must admit, I held my breath because you just felt that there was something gonna blow up.
There was this moment of like, can they really do it?
If this tournament is not played, the future of college athletics was at stake here.
We'll look back on March Madness as those weeks when Indianapolis really led the nation.
This is what the Sports Corp was made for, to do the impossible, to do the event. I don't know of another town in the country that could have pulled this off.
That clip from a behind-the-scenes documentary just being released, made for this moment, which looks at how it all came together. And I'm pleased to be joined by Indiana Sports Corporation President Ryan Vaughn, rejoined. We had him on earlier in the shows, who spent the final 30 minutes of the show this week looking at how it all happened and the impact and what's next. Ryan, you heard some of the comments there. I think it was Mr. Mark Emmert from the NCAA, who talked about the future of basketball. I mean, there was so much riding on this. Was there a level of pressure that was felt here in Indianapolis to pull this event off?
Yeah, it was certainly a heavy responsibility. First, thank you to the NCAA for trusting this community with that, immense opportunity. But, I think most people know and appreciate that as it relates to college sports, particularly the NCAA, men's college basketball is the event that funds a variety of other sports. And so if that doesn't happen, if for a second year in a row, those revenues don't materialize, you're looking at colleges and universities across the country having to slash athletic budgets and programs and opportunities for kids.
I think you could also make the argument, obviously sports is big business for Indianapolis and more broadly, increasingly for Indiana as well. You don't pull this off, and the impact on the city's great reputation stands to be perhaps damaged as well.
Yeah, there was certainly reputational risk if something were to go poorly or, we weren't able to properly work with health officials and design an effective bubble. But to be perfectly candid, I never really struggled with that risk. I was more focused on, how much the city and the state needed us to be successful, how much the NCAA needed us to be successful, and I had all the faith in the world and the community that, has developed that reputation over 40 years to come together and get it done.
Looking back on it now, and I think there was just one team, I think it was VCU, as we talked about off camera, that had to leave because of issues. How did you pull it off? There were so many complexities. You essentially created a bubble, right, downtown Indianapolis.
Yeah, you connected our hotels to the convention center. We built 12 courts in the convention center for practice. You develop complex movement and transportation plans to and from buses and different venues. Remember, we're playing, especially in the first and second rounds, as far away as Lafayette and Bloomington, and then multiple venues in Indianapolis. So it takes an immense planning effort. The NCAA was extraordinary. Marion County Health, State Health Department, incredible. I think at one point in time, we numbered it up. We did over 600 police escorts to and from practices and games in a matter of 3 weeks. So It really does take everyone coming together.
We have another clip with folks reacting to Indianapolis, as the job Indianapolis did, and Virginia Keene was in this one. You mentioned the medical piece. Let's roll that piece of tape.
I have not, in my career, worked with a city where people take such pride, and I would even say they're a little competitive on making sure that Indy does it better than anyone else. And that's not typically true in all cities.
I can't think of another event that's going to throw more at them than we just did. You know, I'm serious. I mean, I can't think of anything short of the Olympics that would be more complex than what we just did.
Nobody else is going to be able to duplicate what we did in Indianapolis, based on collaboration, based on success, and less than 1% any spread of COVID-19 as a result of this tournament. Now, who can beat that?
Yeah, great point there. How about the medical piece? Because obviously that's a huge piece of this story, Ryan. The testing and all the things that went into that. How challenging was that?
Well, I think you could see from that clip just how much of an extraordinary leader Dr. Keene is. I mean, if you take yourself back in that time, it would have been very easy for her to say, no, we can't get it done. But she knew how important it was for the community, and she worked with us tirelessly to get it done. And so, you know, a lot of credit goes to IU Health and the NCAA for working out all the protocols and testing inside the bubble. And then outside the bubble was a whole separate testing for every venue and staff and employee that was going in there. And so we had to have, you know, multiple providers communicating on common platforms, scheduling all of these workers. The folks at Gene Pace Labs did an extraordinary job helping us out. It really was a logistical challenge like none other we faced.
I know everything didn't go perfectly. Give us, we talked about one example of how logistically things didn't necessarily always go according to Hoy.
Yeah, I mean, the truth is nothing ever goes perfectly in these major events, but this one, you know, planning all of this activity in less than 60 days, we knew some things were going to go wrong, but probably the one that I think is the most comical now that we look back on it is, you know, we had so much effort and energy had to go into doing laundry for especially those first 10 days when you've got 68 teams, NCAA staff, volunteers, literally confined to their hotel rooms. And Lowe's was able to deliver 2 trucks that had washers and dryers inside of them, literally minutes before we needed to start doing all this laundry. And as the second one backs up and we open it looking to see washers and dryers, all we see are showers. They'd accidentally sent the wrong truck. And so immediately our logistical supply chain there was cut in half. And, you know, but Lowe's rallied. They sent another truck from a different state, and we were able to play catch up with a little help from friends outside the bubble. But things like that always pop up, and people rally to make it work.
Yeah, great story, and you're good to mention too. Of course, Bloomington and West Lafayette and the hosting job those communities did as well. So Ryan, hang on there. We're going to come back to you in a few moments to continue.